Mr. Corbin Bartholomew Gray. Is that familiar?
Hargraves.
Look, I was trying to mess his name up as much as I could possibly could. You know
You
what I'm
did a good
saying?
job.
You did a
That's
good
my
job.
that's my man, Corbin.
Good job.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a little bit more microphone
Okay.
right here
All
before
right.
Marshall starts spinning around saying, "Look, talking the mic, talking the mic." So, reason we brought you here:
Yes, sir.
open up the book and explain the disparities when it comes to
Ah,
insurance.
I got you.
What?
Who are you?
I messed up. There you go.
Who are you?
Hey, he got me. See, that's
Thank
how
you.
black choose and white choose are. Because I always do that to him every single show. 9 weeks.
But you feed off each other, see?
Yes.
It's called teamwork, right?
Yes.
Teamwork makes the dream work. So I am Corbin Hargraves of Timeless Solution, Timeless Advisors. We are a financial services company based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and I run our Virginia division. I am a licensed
know
mortgage
that.
broker.
Okay.
But we have coverage in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, D.C., Maryland area. So we also have a non-for-profit entity called Timeless Cares, which serves an entire population from North Carolina to D.C. to Virginia and other entities across the states to which we give and lend a helping hand. And we also have a scholarship fund that we assist with children that need funds for college as well too. So, yeah. That's who I am.
What about as just like a human being and like how your path led you to that place?
It started with a Franco-American piggy bank. My parents gave me a piggy bank when I was 3 years old, and I just became obsessed with collecting money from all over the world. I had two aunts that actually were renowned jazz musicians that got to travel, and they would bring me back money from foreign places. And I kept collecting money, and I just became just so fascinated with money. And I just kept stacking my money, and my father always said to me, keep money for a rainy day, because one day you may need it. And it's no better time to have money than when you need it. And so ever since then, he taught me how to save. I was privileged to have two parents that actually taught me about saving, credit, and investing at an early age. So I was the recipient of two great, incredible parents who instilled these beliefs in me at an early age. And I'm thankful for both of them who are still living. So that's how I got started with the financial services industry.
Let me ask you this, okay? A lot of what you said translated over into my family talking to, even though I didn't understand what it meant. Saving money for a rainy day. My mom still says that till this day, right? But it didn't mean to me what it meant to you. Like you were able to take it and actually benefit your life with it. It was just something that my mama said that I just, okay, that's what she talked about, and just kept going. All right, now, when you got to a point to where, when did it get to a point where you saving money, you understanding how money went, you weren't a loan shark, you weren't all these titles that I knew of black people that controlled our communities back in the day before lottery was there. You had the numbers. I grew up around all those type things. So where did it get to the point where you understood money and then it transitioned over to like where you were dealing with, I guess, more white people, the way that they dealt with money as opposed to the way we dealt with money underneath the mattress or, just getting passed. When somebody passed away, it passed on in a box of whatever was divvied down to a person. Like, how did you get to that point where you understood where you fit in this money equation and to where you could be able to help people?
It was college.
Okay.
So I attended Virginia Tech.
Okay.
So I was in enemy territories, obviously, but I'm a diehard Hokie. But in college, I had a professor who was my accounting and finance professor who told me that his population, he was speaking specifically of the white population in America, has used financial tools and investments to get ahead in life.
Okay.
And we had a deep conversation that he said, what really bothers him is it's not as if these tools are secrets, it's just the exposure to them. And there is a distrust. And he was able to acknowledge that as a white male in America who has done well for himself, to say that the minorities of this country have an extreme distrust of the financial services system. And I said to him, thank you for acknowledging it, because a lot of times what happens with us as black people is that people don't want to acknowledge that there's not a level playing field. So even though you were given the knowledge, think about how many people within our community weren't given that information, were not passed those jewels. And so it eluded them. So they were given the mattress money conversation. They were taught to just deal with the cash. Well, we know cash has fluctuation as far as the value of the U.S. currency. It's based on what happens with all these different things that are going on in the economy versus it being about put money away for the rainy day, or the compounding of interest, or getting a CD, or getting into a trust, or setting up wills, and all of these different tools that he was talking to me about. And we had a real conversation. And so that opened my eyes to say there was someone from which the population that created these systems who acknowledges the fact that there should be a distrust of these systems because there's predatory lending. There is higher rates given to people that look like you and I when they come in with an equal credit score of our counterparts within the white community, and then they still have to pay more interest over the life of the loan. But even though they have the same or better not credentials for that particular product, it has been happening for generations and generations and generations. And so when he said that to me, the light bulb went off with me. I said, wow. He said, I want you to understand from this class that you can use the same tools that I've used to put my family in a better position. I want you to be able to do the same thing. And to this day, we still have that relationship and that rapport, and we talk. We continue to talk and have that conversation. So when he's up on something, I'm up on something. And I'm thankful for that relationship. But it requires conversations like this for us to really get to the truth of the matter, so that we can say, why do you feel the way that you did? Why did you not steer to the left and stay with just the mattress conversation? Or why is it that you as an adult now are having to gravitate to that conversation now versus not gravitating towards when you were younger? Because of what you were exposed to. That's what I was exposed to in college. That's what I was exposed to in life. And I am super grateful for those relationships that I built. And the other part became when I came here to Charlottesville. It's different because of the population demographic. You know, it is predominantly white here in town, right? So the majority of my clients that I have here in Charlottesville, guess what? Are white. And so they exposed me further to other additional avenues, other business entrepreneurs that are in the community, other non-for-profit sectors, and people that I've been connected to. And my brother was a part of the University of Virginia, so that tied me into the UVA community as well, too. So I was given that extra leeway to be able to navigate through UVA as well, and that furthered why I gravitate towards financial wellness, financial health, and pushing within our community the way that I do.
Were you taught, as a young white male, were you taught how to operate money?
No. And I think that's one of the things. It's like one of the elephants in the room. I was going to ask a question, but I'll answer yours first. You know, I think well, let me ask my question first. What class did you guys grow up in?
I was middle class. I was, he like when I say this, I was holistic thug.
Holistic thug. Yes, he was.
Holistic thug class.
That was a new
HT class.
I was
HT class
if
destroyer.
not number one, second richest black family in the area that I come from, right? But money wasn't, whatever my great-grandfathers and them had when it came to land and everything, they didn't pass on to their sons. And then people came in and swindled my grandmother, and you know what I'm saying? So we had miles of land. We didn't have acres, you know. We were the slaves that were mixed with the Indians between right where Chancellor butts up all the way over to Lignum. Like we owned that whole entire, we sold Lake of the Woods to Lake of the Woods. You know, we had all that land that was not passed on.
Ask him where the money is. Ask him where the money is, Corbin.
I had a crazy uncle. Now,
Where's the money?
my family gonna get mad at this. I had a crazy uncle
under the mattress,
that beat
though.
everybody. Nah, it's back in the woods.
It's in the woods. I knew where the answer was. I didn't know
He took a backhoe
I knew what it was.
and buried it
buried.
in the
It's
woods. And then when my family gonna get mad at me. When he was on his deathbed with dementia, and he started like kind of telling all the stuff, everybody was around the bed, not in support, but waiting to find out. You know what I'm saying?
It's like Clue.
Yeah. But he died before he could really tell. So his son was like, "This is my day. Y'all gotta get up." We was like, "Man, we talking about me. We will. You know, we will do to you in this parking lot. Like you swindled our grandmother and our family out of it. You had a better life than we had. You're trying to hold on to it, you know, for itself. It's buried back up in the bushes.
Better get
somewhere.
the LiDAR out. Get the LiDAR out.
Man, we
Find it.
tried everything.
I was saying, what about you, Corbin?
So
and where
before-
are you from? I'm curious.
That's important.
Okay.
So you needed to tell where you're from, because saying that you're low class, middle class, or upper differentiates between the town in which you were born in.
Yeah.
So I am originally from Danville, Virginia. I've lived in many different places, but I was born in Danville. So during the time period in which I was born, which is in the 80s, to say that I was middle class in Danville when the average median income was like $28,000, we were middle class. But to say you are,
When you get to UVA or Virginia Tech, it looks different.
It's completely different.
Yep.
So I just wanted to clarify my answer before I
Yeah.
actually fully answered your question. I'm from Danville, Virginia. My family would be classified as middle class when we came up, but it was in Danville, Virginia.
Yeah, and it was kind of a trick question because I hear it a lot. Class is the thing. You're talking about intersectionality of race and class, but like you said, you were spot on. People only talk about three classes, right? You tell me there are only three different kinds of family wealth in this country.
It's much.
I mean, there's
deeper than that.
right. There's thousands of those gradients, right? But the one thing I think a certain class of white people has in common is intergenerational wealth of some type, right? So it goes from, okay, everybody gets $100,000 or thereabouts, 60 to 100 grand for the down payment on their first house from a collection of relatives.
I want you to stop. Did you hear what he just said? When is the last family member in your black family that you heard they got $100,000 for a down payment for a house?
We pass on bills, man.
Do you understand what I'm saying? See, this is where the conversation gets real. Even in my family, the middle class family that is from Danville, Virginia. See, this is the truth of the matter here. That's not what typically happens in a black family. It's debt obligations that are passed on. It's maybe a couple of bucks from a life insurance policy that's passed on, but traditionally it may be the cars, it may be some tangible things such as some property that is in the house, some jewelry. We're fighting about a picture that somebody had with Martin Luther King back in the day that was signed by him, but it's not what you just stated. And it was so free flowing for you to say that. See, that's the beauty of this conversation. So many of my clients have come to me and been like, hey, grandma or nana or mima is going to give me $100,000 for my down payment. Well, what you got to do for this? Oh no, she just wants me to have this because she left it for all the grandkids. That's that planning. That thing that you said you gravitated away from, that's a part of the planning process. And that's why there is such a gap of wealth and equality in this country, because of the fact that's not normal within the black community. That's definitely not normal. But continue with what you had to say.
No, I was gonna say but it's real normal in the white community, right? It really is, and because you're not talking about like, oh wow, you're like it's silver spoons. It's like everybody kind of who calls themselves middle class, which is usually much higher class than they mean, but not as high as the people around them. So you say you grow up in a fancy white suburb, right? And you're middle class there, but your median income is 160 or something like that, right? Because you're in, Arlington County. Of
course.
Right. So, but yeah, the people who are rich in your class, well, they're, two big ones a year coming in from two high-powered parents and legacy investment money that's channeling into the system. So the sheer footprint of, accrued capital in white, even nuclear families means that, no one teaches you, because you know what? Insurance comes, like my dad was a veteran. He had USAA. He puts me on.
That's it.
It didn't take for me till I was 24, getting like on the back end out of college and getting a job, to understand that I had to deal with that now. Right. And by that time I could, right.
Of course.
Especially at the low payment that I had to cover my car payment for USAA, because it was a privileged, it was a privileged account, right? I mean, that's how they started. I just kind of trying to acknowledge that, I think the myth of the white self-made man, especially the myth of the white self-made financial man, it's damaging, because specifically, I don't think people in the white world actually believe it. They just say it, use it, market it. It's marketing. But I think people in the black world actually believe it's true sometimes. Oh man, that guy did that himself?
Yeah.
And Yeah, but if you had no,
Y'all created
you know?
the term "pull yourself up by your bootstraps" and get out here and do this. Like I used to hear that. Now, what I will say for the black community, we had I'll say had because I don't want to put this on our future. We had a problem with we didn't mind being broke as long as we didn't look broke. So then when we got money, we would spend and put like rims on a car that was worth $300, but the rims were worth $1,200. Things like that. So I know personally when the drug epidemic hit, that the $100,000 that you're talking about for me and my cousins was nothing.
Yeah.
Like 16, 17, 18, it was nothing. Like I went to 7-Eleven with $8, $9, $10,000 to go buy Slurpees in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like
cash.
I had cash. Yeah, like
cash.
that kind of money. I had that kind of money. Like if anybody knows from the Rayful Edmondson, that funneled right on down through Orange County Car Park, right? So, and I'm the baby of my family. So things were already put in place for me there. When you went up to my family that was in Philadelphia, I had cousins that was part of the Junior Black Mafia. So money was nothing to me. That's why I don't get impressed by it. It was nothing. I have a friend, and if he's listening right now, he knows I'm telling you, God rest his dead soul. They took $1 million and made a bed out of it, and that's what his son slept on. Wow. I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. Anybody from, I still got the picture where little man is sitting on the bed. That's what he slept on. He slept on $1 million.
But it's still not intergenerational wealth, right, unless it gets to the next.
But people were pulling up in brand new Lexuses and I think Acuras and stuff was a car then in front of trailers. You know what I'm saying? Like we had no mindset. I had a house. I grew up with land in a house. My mom and dad. I don't want people to think that I grew up that way, but we had land. We had a house. We had all these things. I just gravitated to the more negative side of things. That's what I enjoyed. But we did not have the knowledge when it came to all the money that flowed through doing negative stuff back then could have easily been turned into dump trucks, real estate, property, everything that we was trying to emulate off of what we saw the gangsters do, the Italians and all this type stuff. We had a period in the 80s to the early 90s where we could have done the same thing had we had the knowledge of what you come on to the show and say, look, put your money here, put your money there. So even if you went to prison.
I see what you're saying. You could have cleaned the money, built businesses, you could have set come your family
back. Up. Oh, without, dude, I'm telling you, it was great. I know.
It was crazy.
I hate saying this. I never wore the same pair of socks for 5 years. I would not wash my clothes. I would leave it at the hotel where we would go places.
When Razor's done bragging, Corbin's going to
tell us. That's not bragging. This is sad. This is sad. You know what I'm saying? To say that, literally, I never wore the same pair of socks for 5 years. I refused to wear the same pair of socks for 5 years. When we went places and we left, whatever clothes I left in the hotel rooms, and then we bought more clothes to go and do stuff we was doing.
But the sad thing about what you're saying
and that's terrible.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The sad thing with a lot of people within our community, they still have that same mindset. You were saying 80s, 90s.
And they broke.
2021, we still have people within our community that their definition of financial success is by what we drive, by what we wear.
Hood rich.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's where the problem comes in within our own community. But why are we here, though? Why? Because there is a belief that success is worn or shown versus what the next generation is able to do.
Yeah.
Or presenting a platform so that we can transition our next generation to success. But why is that the case? Going back to the distrust of the financial services industry. Because the products that would allow for the next generation to get ahead, we don't necessarily use them.
Right.
Life insurance, trust, wills, real estate, some
bank
of the stuff
accounts
that you've talked about, bank accounts, increasing your credit score, so you're paying lower interest rates to pay off debt, so that you don't have the debt to pass on to the next generation.
We're seeing taxes as a positive thing instead of a negative thing.
Exactly.
Like it's buy the power from the IRS. Buy the power.
But what it also requires is us to understand that it's almost like having a conversation with a foreign language to a person if they don't understand that these things can be used as a tool to either transition from the streets over into corporate America, or these things can be used as a tool for you to get ahead and let your legacy play be that for the next generation so that they are a leg up ahead of where you are once you pass on.
So how do you break through with people? What's the most successful way?
We've been on radio all summer, right?
Yeah.
So
helped me a lot.
Conversation, and Razor can acknowledge this, and I'll let him speak on himself.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have the conversation to the people that don't believe in the systems that actually can benefit them,
mm-hmm.
to dispel or to dishevel the actual disbelief or the lack of trust of these entities, then it's going to keep on being the same cycle that continues to repeat itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I, as a brother, can talk to Razor as another brother and say, you know what, Razor, I want you to change your thought process for a second. Let me share with you and impart some wisdom that I have been given as a result of my experience in the financial services industry and the people that I've connected to help you break that distrust of the industry and put your family in a better position. We've got to have the conversation, because as long as you continue to think that way, you always will be in that position. But if someone doesn't give them the game or doesn't have a conversation with them and say, let me show you how to do it and walk you through it, then it's going to always be the same. It'll never change.
And unfortunately, we have so many people that have taken the wrong road and have the distrust. I have to have this conversation with Corbin openly, which Black America really hasn't done. You look out for your family, but they, Mr. Such and Such down the road don't bring the whole Black community over, because of fear that he might get cut off his. So Corbin and I have the conversation openly, and the people that are from the street or the disenfranchised have a trust in me because of where I went. Like he said, we were both middle class. I aspired to do different things that put me down here. I aspire to do better things now. So they listen to me because they can see how to get to me, to Corbin, faster than they can see from them to Corbin. So then they end up saying, yeah, Corbin's my man. He the best in the world. But then they'll never go talk to him.
No follow-up.
Yeah, nothing at all. But they'll take a person like me. I have to always remain transparent so that they can say, okay, I can go where Razor is. Razor, you trust him? Okay, now they're listening. Now they're subject to say, okay, well, you know what? I do got a couple $1,000s of stimulus money and all throughout the pandemic that I may be able to invest some of it if you show me what I can do. So we have to take a different route as Black America, So hopefully anybody listening that has money saved up, that they can say, okay, how can this money work for me? And that's what Corbin has helped me do over the summer.
Question for you, Corbin. How much does community that you grow up in affect this behavior is question number one. Number two, talk to me about Danville, because I have this kind of like abstract kind of romantic notion of Danville. Like it's the Pittsburgh of Virginia. It's the hard work. It's 50-50 black, white. Milltown, kind of at the top of the North Carolina black belt, kind of at the bottom of the Virginia cracker belt.
Not me, because Martin Luther King went down through there, right?
He was at our church.
Yeah, and the other guy just from Danville that you introduced me to, the first meeting that I went to, he's like the historian or whatever.
Oh, Justin Reed's from Farmville. He's from Farmville. So similar area. Not quite though. That's more over.
What I know from Danville is they used to be up, and then whatever happened, kind of the factories went out or. White America ostracized them because, there's a lot of towns that Martin Luther King went through that if you look at them now, those towns don't have what they had during the Civil Rights War. Right. And I think that is just as strategic as Tulsa.
Well, but I was going to say, because white Danville has a story too, especially up in this part of the world. The guy who ended up owning the Daily Progress started his newspaper in Danville to compete against the Bee and Register, and then moved up and bought the Daily Progress, eventually owned Media General. And I know, I guess where I was coming back is like, my romanticization of Danville is that it was this thriving mill town that had both a black and white middle class, which is not true of, there's very few towns that are not on like the Tennessee River or the Ohio River that have that, both a black and a white middle class. Is that true? And and what I'm saying to that is that there was a consideration of, I guess the financial health of the community was built into the self-concept of the community. And I'm not sure if that was, there was a white one of those and there was a black one of those, or those were in conversation with each other.
So let me answer your first question. Your first question was, how did me coming from Danville, Virginia, affect me from what perspective? I just want to
shape your view of, I guess, the pathway to financial success in America.
So Danville, Virginia afforded me the opportunity to see two hardworking parents. I am the son of a military vet who was the plant manager at Goodyear. He worked there for 35 years after he came home from service. And my mother is a teacher, 40 years retired. So I saw two hardworking parents. They've still been together. They've been together as officially of May of next year, 52 years.
Wow.
Married and still live in the same house and actually sleep in the same room sometimes. So I got to see I would call it the Cosby edition, I guess, of the family.
Yeah.
So Danville in itself didn't necessarily drive me to attain financial freedom. 41.
Okay.
I'm 41. Didn't necessarily drive me to achieve financial freedom, but what it did, it showed me that hard work does pay off, because that was instilled in me at an early age from my father and my mother. Now, to go back and let's get some points of reference for Danville. Danville is 2 hours and 10 minutes roughly south on 29 from Charlottesville. It is the last city on 29 before you cross over into the North Carolina border. One of the things that you spoke of as far as the industry, it was textile and tobacco.
Okay.
Those were the two major industries for Danville, Virginia. The tobacco market got wiped out because the plant got pushed away, and Dan River Mills, which was the textile hub for Danville, was a job hub of over 8,000 people in Danville. That mill shut down. When the textile and tobacco industries in Danville got shut down, that caused a job shift, which also led to a lot more poverty. It led to lower wages. It led to less jobs, less employment opportunities in the Danville region. Goodyear's main plant in the southeast, where my father was the plant manager, is in Danville, Virginia. So what we saw when the textile and tobacco markets went down is we saw an influx of people going to work at Goodyear. So it was either you worked in hospitality, food, or Goodyear is where you wanted to work if you wanted a steady job. If you wanted the money but wanted to be exposed to the elements that the Goodyear plant had, then you would go there if you wanted more money, obviously, and get a better salary or better compensation. Then what happened was a shift. When I was in high school, the Danville Braves, which is the Appalachian League for the Atlanta Braves farm team, moved to Danville. So that was a little bit of surge, but baseball didn't necessarily have the draw. But there is a major one coming to Danville current day. 2023 will be host to the new Caesars Entertainment Casino Resort and Hotel in Danville. They are building a $500 million property that's going to be a full 3,500 seat venue, full-on casino, 305 suites. And then there's going to be a major cook and chef that are going to be doing the top floor restaurant in Danville. Major names coming soon. So that will bring a lot of people, and it's already started. So there's been a revitalization period of the downtown area of Danville. That other outside, there's a guy that owns the Ruth Chris location in Greensboro that has come into town to buy out an entire street and a block to revitalize. He's putting restaurants up. So there is going to be a turn in Danville that I think exists. Was there middle class black and white in Danville? You're absolutely right. And that population density is about right. It was never a 50-50 swing because there was other people from other races that completed like a 10%. But a 50-40, 10% split of other was what it was when I was growing up. I don't know the exact population demographic breakdown now, but we had a good mix in Danville. And so hard work is something that I was instilled. But as far as the drive to go out and get it, that happened when I left Danville and I went overseas through my travels, networking with people and those that were extremely wealthy, because I wasn't exposed to that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, okay? When poverty came into Danville, right? As smart as you are, how did you not? This is gonna sound crazy to some people, but I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. How did you not get caught up in the crime that came up from Danville? Because I have a couple friends that are down Danville that they got into the wrong stuff on a heavy level, and a lot of times our youth that are intelligent, I know you got a military dad and teaches them all, but our youth that are smart gravitate to how they can make this illegal money fast. So how did you stay the course to end up at Virginia Tech. You know, because a lot of people don't understand that when people go through prison and come out, a lot of the black community business people are people that have been incarcerated because they've always had a mind for numbers and business and stuff. So how did you stay out of that?
My brother. I have an older brother that was the vice president of admissions for UVA. He ended up being the Jefferson Scholar, which they only give out 13 a year as a Jefferson Scholar recipient. He was admitted, he was given scholarships to MIT, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, and ended up accepting to come up here on the Hill to UVA. He was reading the encyclopedia when I was like 3-4 years old nightly, just expanding his vocabulary, just getting his knowledge of just wisdom and everything that he could grab. And I would see him. And even though I was out here just running crazy as a wild youngin', I would see the dedication and the diligence that my brother put in night and day. And he scored 15, 20 out of 1,600 on his SATs. So when he set the bar that high, you know what my father was doing to me? If your brother can do this, you can do it too. I had no interest. I was in there trying to chase the women. Women are the most beautiful thing ever created on this earth. I don't care what nobody says. It's not even up for discussion. It's nothing for us to debate. But I was too busy. Sports, women, young ladies, girls, trying to be the cool cat. But I did well in school for myself, though, too. My father didn't allow it. He said, if you're going to be in this house, you could go do what you want to do within restraint, but you need to make sure that you're handling your business when it comes to school. Okay. And so my brother set the bar so high up, and the competitive drive in me said, if I go out there, I know the end of that. It's either death or a sale. If I stay in here, and my brother was getting... They had articles, front page paper with my brother on the front for what he was doing in school. He got flown to Germany for his last year of school, like to go to like this German high school. Like he was just really always praised and acknowledged for everything he did. And I was like, I want that. So I did it through sports and academics. And I was like, but my guys that were in the streets that I ran with, that came from Cedar Place, Pernham Woods, and other project developments that I ran with in school, I kept them at a distance in the bay because they always would say, don't run out here with us because we see that you've got a bright future. So I thank them that turned me away from that lifestyle and was like, stay away from this. Keep doing what you're doing because we're going to need you later on in life. So my brother in the streets actually pushed me away from it and they kept me out of it. So I'm thankful for that, man.
That's what's up.
What happened to your brother? What happened to your brother?
I'm an only child. My parents got it right the first time. You can't perfect on this, baby. I mean, what you want? You know what I'm saying? My dad said, that's all I got. That's it. Everything.
I'm
right
curious
there.
though, I feel like a lot of times when we tell our American stories or our family stories, we kind of like revert to these like narratives that people accept, you know, that sound clear, you know, and there's even more so a pressure if you're black to adopt one of those narratives that's acceptable to the white people around you, at least for that purpose. Not like that's what you tell your friends, but just, okay, I'm gonna throw this out. This is our little family narrative. You accept that. That's cool. We don't have to go there. But just you said something earlier in the conversation. I had two aunts who were famous jazz musicians. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have two aunts who were famous jazz musicians. And then you also talked about your travels being key to opening up your awareness about financial well-being.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering if there was a connection between your aunts out there and your willingness to go out there to look for solutions, you know, or to feel like you were part of this big wide world and just had to go find your spot, or what. I'm just curious, you know, not everybody has somebody in their family who's successful at being all around the world.
Yeah. They definitely helped to motivate me, but I was just fascinated by the Travel Channel. When I used to see these beautiful places, Danville is centered on the Dan River. That's what runs through
town.
And there's a blue bridge, which we know as the Smurf Bridge, that runs over the Dan River.
Right.
And the water is purely dirty. But when I would watch the Travel Channel and see this crystal blue water that you could see to the floor,
I want to drink that water.
I'm like, I got to go get this. this is fascinating to me. There's no mosquitoes where you travel where the water is pure blue. I gotta go here. And so when I had the first opportunity, first thing smoking, Whitsundays, Magnetic Island, Australia, Sydney, Great Barrier Reef, I was in these places going. And I just was so fascinated that I knew they existed, but I couldn't touch them because I hadn't been there. Mm-hmm. And so that drove me. You need money to travel, or you either have to be connected to something. So my first gig outside of college was I was working for the National Basketball League of Australia, and they flew me into Sydney, and I was in Brisbane and Toowong, and it just opened up.
I ain't know none of this.
I met Steve Irwin before he passed away, as a matter of fact.
Steve Irwin.
I went out to the brush with Steve Irwin, and we went out there.
I don't even feel like I know you no more. Look,
I we're having different conversations.
Yeah, I feel cheated on though, but I mean, I thought I knew. I thought I was bringing my friend in. I don't know you.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, you. I mean, there's a lot of layers and cloth lines that pull back and stuff like that.
Rugby gear.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like say somebody from a different nationality come in and start speaking their language. All of a sudden he starts, and you look at him like, where all this come from? I ain't know nothing about this. Yeah. Like, nah, that's good, man.
So travel was something that I had to have it. I just thought that there were, and then the other thing about travel, I tell people, because a lot of people in Danville, this is the other thing. This is what also motivated me. A lot of people that still live in Danville that were my friends, they know nothing but Greensboro, Charlotte, Atlanta, and DC. And I try to tell them there is so much more to experience, even if you only travel domestically. But there's some beautiful places, beautiful people out here that you can go meet and network with. It's not just centralized to the East Coast. If you get the chance to travel, take it. If you have the resources, take it. Take the opportunity, because it will it'll broaden your horizons.
But I think travel is one of these things that we don't talk about, we would never talk about in relationship to finance in general. Okay, but for me, I'm hearing this story and I'm like, it's interesting because, if you're black, travel cross country in your car. Yeah, maybe
on Route 66. I mean, you have some spots you don't really want to be at.
But for white people, it's like, oh yes, you do that after high school, right? And it's like, and then the financial part these days, especially, like, oh, I'm going to go to Europe for 2 weeks. Okay, well, for 16 grand, you are. So, I'm just curious about you because you thinking to yourself, I'm going to figure the whole world out by figuring everyone out between Culpeper and Southeast. And you could, and you can, right? But you don't have to, right? Like
that's what I was exposed to. Everything that I knew that came from. We're going to go up a little further. We're going to say New York City. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, he ain't going to box me. From New York City to Miami. Yeah.
Okay.
Yup, 95 all the way there. Anything along up in there, I got, right?
I got it covered.
So when it comes to something that...
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No. That's the truth, though, because that's the part of the story that, like, you growing up a kid, seeing New Jack City or seeing, going to the Go-Go's and seeing the guys come with the Madness hats and all that type of stuff, right? You see that, and that's cool. But what did you have to do to obtain that?
Yeah, you don't.
That's the part that, right, that y'all want to look at from a TV, from the safety of eating some popcorn and say, ooh, look, he got a Smith & Wesson. Right. There's a difference when you smell gunpowder.
Even a white kid at the Go-Go, you're basically invisible. Unless
you're not invisible.
No, you're not.
Yeah, we know exactly where you.
We're following you
at all time.
No, but
you know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying is you're not really. Nobody's stepping to you because they don't care. You're not really bringing the same thing with your crew to the floor. So you can just dance and enjoy. Yeah. I mean, that's basically. So it was a voyeuristic. You're like a ghost. It's not that nobody notices you, but you know what I'm saying? You're not repping, you're not forced to rep a situation. And frankly, you can't dance, and the assumption is you can't dance. So if you are, more power to you.
Wait a minute, y'all. Let's shift gears for a second, because I don't want to miss something that we talked about. When it comes to insurance, in my parents' generation, there were certain companies that would target black people, get them to give money for insurance, and not pay the dividends. So even when we did what he was talking about, like, I'm insurance, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to, you still have another layer of people that if they do you wrong, they're not held accountable. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah.
Penny policies. They used to be very popular back in our parents, grandparents, ancestors' generation, to where these insurance agents would come by the door, knock on your parents' door, knock on your grandparents' door, and say, pay your weekly premium on your policy. They collect a couple of dollars, they would take it. Oh, you've got benefit of $25,000, $50,000. And then guess what? Company would go defunct. Money would never pay out because they never had any intentions of paying this money out in the first place. People would establish these companies because they knew that there was a population, our population, that would give this money willingly because they thought they were doing the right thing by using one of these financial tools that is supposed to benefit the next generation or to pay out. Or even in this life, because as I've told you before, life insurance shouldn't be looked at just upon death. It should. There's ways to take advantage of it even in life, as far as whole policies, whole life policies, building cash value and accessing that cash value while you're still living.
I knew nothing about that until you started talking about it on the radio.
And so the thing is, it became a popular thing. I remember when my grandparents were still living, they had been victimized by several companies, that had came by, took their policies. They still had their group insurance, but the problem with the group insurance when you're working, it's only when you're working. So once you leave the company, you no longer have the coverage. And so unbeknownst to themselves, guess what? They went from having, whether that was $250,000 or $300,000 of group life insurance coverage to they retired from the company. They went from now having no coverage and then a company that went defunct to now zero. And so guess what? We're back to square one, to where now we're not passing that 6-figure check that should be passed to the heirs. They're going to pass just whatever's left in the bank account and whatever debts come along with that. So,
and you took my money.
Yeah.
And you took the money.
Fast forward to now, why is there an insurance ad on every 30 seconds if you're watching sports?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to promote, it's easy to sell, and it depends on what type of insurance you're saying. Auto insurance is something that it's mandatory for you to have. Life insurance, you don't necessarily have to have that. But auto insurance, homeowners insurance are policies that you technically are supposed to have if you're doing it the right way. You go to the DMV, you register a car, it says, do you have at least a liability-only policy? You're supposed to check that box. They don't go to validate it if you don't. But if you don't, you're supposed to pay, in the state of Virginia or the Commonwealth of Virginia, you're supposed to pay a $500
fee. Yep.
If you don't have that liability policy. So it's mandatory for you to have it. So it's an easy sell. Insurance draws in a pool of money, and then they're betting that we're going to take in more premiums than we ever have to pay out in policies because we have an abundance of clients that pay these premiums in. So it's an easy sell. Whether it's the General, whether it's, Aflac, Duck Talking, or Jake from State Farm. I mean, they can get colorful with it. You've got major network TV sports figures, prolific figures now advertising insurance because it's an easy sell. And they'll be like, oh, we want to go with the company that, Jake from State Farm, or now even
Shaq on the General.
Shaq with the General.
So
Aaron Rodgers is even promoting it.
We're all regular people, just as trusting as your grandparents, really, when it comes to buying insurance. But if you're white, they're actually giving you a policy, because do you know what I'm saying? It's like none of us know anything about insurance. Regular people don't. We just trust. Oh, Corbin, tell me what I need to pay.
So here's the thing: we are a financial brokerage. If you come to me to get an insurance policy, one of the things I tell you, we only deal with A-rated companies. You can deal with. Some people just want a cheaper policy, but sometimes you get what you pay for. You want to make sure that the company is A-rated, and who are they affiliated? Look at the balance sheet. These aren't things that you necessarily would ask your insurance agent, but you want to know the rating, the history, and has the company been ever sued for any major malfeasance or malpractice or anything that they've done when it comes to the insurance game, because you can see where the company is rated. Every single insurance company has to be rated.
Yeah.
And if they have a low rating, you might want to stay away from that company.
Yeah.
But we only deal with A-rated companies. So if we pitch you a policy, you best believe we've already done that extra digging through that this company has enough assets to pay out if your policy becomes due, or there is a death to pay out, or if you need to access the cash, that's the part that people need to ask the question about the insurance industry, which is this a company rated high or are they not?
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference.
We got to get Miguel Corradine in here with Corbin and do the. Miguel's got Sirius Insurance, and he's, sells to primarily Spanish-speaking clientele in Charlottesville. But he talked about how in the Latino community, he's always trying to make that case for for A-rated companies, but there's still the bulk of demand in his client base doesn't want to go there, and it's a tough thing,
Did you ask him why though? Did you ask him why?
No.
The resistance.
Yeah,
because I guarantee you that same resistance is about a lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee. If you ask him back whenever you get a chance to speak to him, say, do you think it's a lack of trust within your community? Because I guarantee you it focuses around that.
Okay.
Some of it's just that we just want people to, I want to do enough so you leave me alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I know when I first got my driver's license, it didn't matter how much money I had. I just wanted to do enough to where the man left me alone.
It wasn't about you. It wasn't for you. It was
nothing about no future kids. It wasn't nothing about no. You know what I'm saying? It was just nobody had told me nothing. You got to carry insurance. Okay, what's the cheapest rate I can get? $37. Can you do 32? You know what I'm saying?
You trying to negotiate?
Yeah, that's all you want to. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I looked at it, man.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anybody. My parents was just like, be good people, pay your bills. You know what I'm saying? Try not to make no trouble. No trouble meant white people in your business. That's what that meant. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it was like, because you could have too much. Black people originated the parking around back. You know what I'm saying? When you start getting some nice stuff, your Sunday car and stuff like, you know what I'm saying? Because you didn't want no trouble. So they would park, certain cars around back, drape it up, whatever, pull it out on Sunday. Keep it clean, put it back. You know what I'm saying? That type of stuff, man. Once you start understanding how the mindset of your community operates, you understand just how far behind we are.
Yeah, but we've been talking around it, and Corbin, you're identifying. But I mean, just maybe take a minute. Like, this sounds like another system that, like banking, that was basically evil in the way it dealt with black people in the South, in particular. Maybe everywhere. No, it's probably not in the South. It's probably everywhere, right? It's Chicago, Detroit. Doesn't matter. So that evil, how do you get it out of the system? And then if if it's the system you're going into as a black man and a community leader who's taking the trust of people, how do you contend with that legacy and history and your ability to change it?
So for anybody in my community that's willing to listen to me, when they do anything financially with me, one thing I say is this: ask questions first and foremost. You have to read the documents. Too many times we like to just sign things without reading.
That was me.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you already don't trust the person that's giving you the document and they know you have a tendency not to read and understand what it is you're signing, you've lost the game and the battle from the start. So, for example, I had a Zoom meeting with a client yesterday who's buying their first home. And I said, I don't consider myself a salesperson. What I consider myself is someone who provides a solution. But I want you to understand this is also an educational period for me, because I want you to be sharp enough that if you never do another deal with me, you could say, Corbin taught me this when we went through the first time of buying a house. And so you understand. I said, I find it ironic in my industry with the mortgage part, there is a demographic tab now. So when you fill out that, what's known as the 1003 or the mortgage loan application, there is a section that used to just say, Alaskan, white, black, Indian. It used to be right there, male, female, or other, and you leave it alone. You would check it. And then it would say on our side internally, did you observe this? Because you have the right not to provide this information to me. And then it'd say, Corbin, did you observe this just by visual perspective of what you think that they are? Okay, well, I started thinking, why is this information even necessary?
Right.
Because
it's illegal to use it, technically.
It is, but they use it as a gauge to see if I'm being discriminatory, which is the regulatory industry that watches over us, which is the CFPB. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau gets this data.
Right.
So let's say I do 100 mortgages this year, right? And I do 20 for black clients, I do 40 for white clients, and then all the rest mixed up. But they notice a trend that for the white clients, I'm giving them better rates. And then for my black clients, I'm charging with equal credit scores, equal assets, I'm giving them higher rates. And for the other, I'm just really sticking it to them really bad. They say that they're using that information to determine whether or not I am an ethical and moral lender. I say a little different. Because now on the new version of the 1003, which came out last year, they've taken that new demographic information. It's gone, are you Filipino? Are you Asian? Are you from Taiwan? Are you Chinese? Are you black? Are you African American? Are you Latino? Are you Hispanic? Are you from Spain? Are you from? I mean,
segmenting the market.
It's gone so far out. Are you Samoan? Like different categories of each particular class or race, just to the point where now it's just like, are you really using this data to draw whether or not someone is being ethical as a lender, or are you really drawing this because you all are going to use this for information to pass back to banks? Because you're getting very intrusive with the information now. Like, why is this necessary? But see, myself as an ethical financial person, I'm saying, look, I don't care what color you are. I want to give you the best rate, period, point blank. Because in our sector of the industry, I don't get paid based on what rate I sell you. They cut that out years ago. It used to be the Wild Wild West. I could make up to 6 points if I wanted to back before they changed the guideline. Now I'm getting a flat rate, flat comp, regardless of whatever you do. So they changed that. So now I'm saying, I want you to understand, I'm going to give you the best rate regardless. I always have given you the best rate, even when it was the Wild Wild West. But that's where the problem lies as to what's going on with the services in this industry, because of the fact that people don't realize that's how they're determining what they're going to give you. So when you say to me, what's causing this or how do we get rid of this? 1, read. 2, ask questions. 3, trust your instincts. You know about the instincts in the street. In the street, the instincts is something that'll keep you alive. If you feel that something's off, step away from the table, don't sign the documentation, and go to someone who may know either a trusted source or find somebody who is someone you can rely on to give you the information. Because that's, to say the system's going to come down in our lifetime, that's not going to happen. But to say that what can you actively do as a human being and a person individually through every transaction that you have within the financial services is to read, educate yourself, step back from the table if it doesn't feel right, and then go get as much knowledge as you can with this particular transaction.
Now, what happens if I want to identify as a 47-year-old white woman?
Well, if you're doing a transaction with me, I'm not going to put down that you're a 47-year-old white woman.
No, I'm saying this is what I identify with. How you going to tell me how I feel?
What do you mean as far as...
Well, like, I'm trying to go off of what you said. Like, you
to put down the category.
When they ask you, did you observe that this person matches this demographic?
Right,
and if I say I identify...
gender...
No, if I identify... Like, no, because that's a real thing
We're
nowadays.
in a non-binary situation now because people have... I get where
you
you're
understand
going.
what I'm saying?
I get where you're going.
We're in a point in America, in the world, where you can identify
you're right.
with... Right,
you're not gonna get me caught up in this
3%. I'm 47-year-old white woman.
All right, so let me answer your question.
So how you gonna tell me what I'm not?
You're right, because I know you like to have razor's edge, because that's what you are, razor's edge. That's what you do. So let me tell you something. I'm gonna give you Razor the application. Yeah. You fill it out, and if you mark that you identify with being a 47-year-old white woman, and then when it asks me the question on my side, because I fill that part out, I don't go back and change what you put. Yeah. It says, "Does I observe this to be true or accurate?" I'm going to check either NA or no, I didn't, and I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm not going to refute that. But we're not going to get into an argument about if that's what you identify with.
Right. When you show me my 19% rate and your 3% rate, I'm telling you what I identify with.
You were just so comfortable with the insurance conversation. Razor had to do something. He had to pull the ripcord.
Of course.
So, no, but yeah, I guess we've been talking a lot about insurance, and that's one of the things we said the conversation was going to be about. But we're talking more about
just financial services at all.
Yeah, and also financial agency, right? Like your ability to control your own destiny with finance, and what it does for people. You mentioned just being in Charlottesville. I mean, this is a place with insane concentrated capital and intergenerational wealth. Yeah. And the University of Virginia, the same, is a center, national and international, of the same.
Yes.
And the two actually have sort of merged in the last 5 years or so through financial services, private equity moving back, just a lot remote work, people choosing it as a place. So you have, if you think about the Darden and the McIntyre schools and their alumni associations and their influence in the financial services community worldwide, and then you connect that to the private wealth capital in Charlottesville, and then the system of, people and businesses who manage that here. You have the confluence of two of the, you're really talking about the highest echelon of American wealth, white American wealth in most cases. What was seeing that firsthand for you? I mean, what did you take from it, both to use, and what did you take from it, like, oh my Lord?
So, wow. I actually got brought back from Japan and Australia here because I was offered a position as a financial advisor with Wachovia, which is now defunct. It was bought out by Wells Fargo. And my first position was in the branch located on Barracks Road. And the first thing I saw, because I started August 1st of the year I got here, was my first interaction was with a body of students. I quickly realized that there were a lot of students that came from very wealthy families. My brother had already warned me, but I got to see it firsthand. I'll never forget, of course I won't mention any names, there was a girl who came in who was the daughter of a prominent VP of a major Fortune 500 company in the United States. I knew who her father was just because I read different financial periodicals. And she came in and she was like, yes, my daddy is going to transfer me $25,000 for my girls this weekend so we can go out and have a good time. I said, excuse me? I said, what? Because she wanted me to assist with the transaction because I was handling some of the wire stuff as well too when the bank was busy. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, but she was like, yeah, that'll be good enough for us for the weekend. And I kind of was like, you're going to blow 25? She was like, oh, he sends me $25,000 usually a week. And I was like, I looked at her. And I don't know how that feels to you, but I've never been in a position where anybody was wiring me $25,000 a week at all. But it went to show me that there was a lot of people that not only were wealthy, but it created a sense of entitlement because she got frustrated because she had to wait a little bit in the lobby. And she was like, do you know who my daddy was? So I brought her back in the office and we actually became really cool. And I told her, I said, the world doesn't necessarily revolve around you. I know you may think that it does, but there's this thing called a line. And I understand that your dad is really wealthy. I understand you come from a wealthy family. But, just a little common courtesy to get you so far in the way. And she just like had a moment. She broke down and she was like, I am used to getting my way. No one's ever accepted me that way because usually my dad just takes care of everything. And so her father called and he called, kind of huff and puff. And I was like, look, I'm going to do what you're asking to be done. But there's a ton of people in the bank right now. Like she wants it like right now. And she jumped the line. And so we had a good conversation. And I even told him, and I had just finished reading an article about him. I ran off some stuff. He was like, how do you know about me? And I was like, come on, man. Like, seriously. And so we had a good conversation. But that goes to show you, until we have, once again, a conversation about something. Yeah. I had to educate her about just common respect. Just humble yourself a little bit because I don't care how much money you got. You come in this bank, there's a lot of wealthy people that come in this bank. But there's a lot of people that feel like they're entitled to certain privileges and rights and things like that. Yeah. I'm kind of like, no, I don't operate like that. Like there's a lot of people that have money in here, but you treat me with respect and I will reciprocate that back to you. But don't do it just because you think that you could just talk down and belittle my staff that's in here in the banking institution, that you could just talk to us any kind of way. So I quickly learned when I got to Charlottesville, there are a lot of people that are wealthy here in town. There are a lot of people that have an abundance of wealth. I can't tell you how many times I see people coming in with commission checks out the wazoo, real estate agents, commercial brokers, some of the top tier people in the town. Like their checks were crazy.
You're a better man than me because I would have been like Britney Spears' background dancer. Anything you need, baby, I'm going to take your money.
But it was more or less of a networking opportunity for me.
Though, you need a driver.
Which led to opportunities later on, even to this day, of some of those agents that I was dealing with when I was in the bank and then I broke free and went on my own. Mm-hmm. So I always saw it as an opportunity to network versus being like, I'm not going to let you just run over me here because what you're going to do is if you set the tone that you can do this,
it'll never change.
It'll never change. So if we don't cut this off in the beginning, there were a lot of clients I just had to say, if you talk to me, I'm a pretty cool dude to talk to. But if you come in here acting crazy, I'm just, you're not gonna talk to my staff any kind of way. It just doesn't work that way. So, Charlottesville is a very unique place. It's very unique, very unique from that aspect of financial wealth. So, yeah.
Do you think of Charlottesville as unique in that way?
I have the Charlottesville that I knew pre-Charles Lewis and the Charlottesville that I have after meeting Charles Lewis.
Okay.
Charles kind of opened up the rooms, me and you and the show, and you know what I'm saying? He put me, Charles could see my brain and put me in other rooms, right? And then I just navigated myself. Prior to that, we saw Charlottesville as, because I'm from Orange County, so we all had beards and look older, so we would wait till y'all had like the homecoming down here and stuff like that. Come down here, wait till about like 1 o'clock till they, oh God, I'm so drunk. Yes, she is. How you doing? You know what I'm saying? So, and then we would get into the clubs and this, that, you know, we would use that as a means of getting into clubs, right? Hold on, let me help you up. Yeah, no, I'm carrying in. Boom. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then go and do our own thing. So after I've gotten older and being in these rooms, I see Charlottesville as a wealth of opportunity for me, right? Because several things happen where nobody that's white wanted to be considered to being a racist. So you find yourself doing things that, you know, anything that doesn't look racist. Let me help out over here. You know what I'm saying? You found it, and you have the people that take advantage of that, try to find white guilt and take advantage of those type things. Then you have people that genuinely want to help but don't know how, right? But in the course of that, I never wanted what you were willing to get me. I wanted to have what you, like you said, I wanted that blue water. I wanted that, you know what I'm saying? So how do I go to these meetings, these venues where everybody's really enjoying themselves? Not you invite me, so y'all got the table right here. This is the black table right here. Yeah. And this is the, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want that. I turned away from that. I wanted, call me when not everybody's around, and then I'm there eating or where I'm going to talk, and then, you know, you want to play golf? Let's play golf where ain't no cameras around. Then you really get a chance to navigate and build something that lasts the test of time. All these people, and I'm not knocking nobody because that's your way of doing it, that look like me, that jump around for every little meeting, go to this person's house, it's like that. You're just filling a status quota. You know what I'm saying?
But I think I guess
so. That's what Charlottesville is to me. It's opportunity.
Part of the reason I asked the question is I think in the white finance community, there's probably now, I hope there is, I'm sure there is. You would know better than me, Corbin. Black, McIntyre, and Darden alumni groups in D.C., Atlanta, New York that have a lot of access and wealth and power.
Is it?
But they don't.
I don't feel like it.
They don't do it here. They don't do it here. Who does do it here? The really preppy white version of that Darden McIntyre group is the one that comes back to Charlottesville to dig in.
That's because when the black population comes to Charlottesville, it's hard to retain them because of the opportunities. Look at the major metropolitan cities that you just named, that those people that graduate who are black, that graduate from Darden. I have several friends. So to answer what you were saying about confirming that, yes, it is. There was a group in Jersey. There's a group in New York. Several people to which I am friends with now. But look where they had to go to take that. Because if they want to go sit on Wall Street, they can't do that here in Charlottesville. They got to go to New York or they got to go out to Jersey.
Yeah, but the white guys, they do 5 years in Wall Street. They get to VP at Bear Stearns or whatever. Their buddy comes back who's 10 years above them, opens up a private equity firm. They move all the crew back, and they run things here.
Okay.
Right?
But from a social perspective, what would draw that young black male or woman back to Charlottesville?
Nothing, but that's what I'm saying is the big pipe that we're connected to doesn't flow into black Charlottesville. It flows into white Charlottesville.
Well, that's also speaking to the disconnected. He said, there are people that I genuinely believe are trying to pour resources into the black community. They just don't know how to do it.
But what is the black community, Corbin?
What is the black community?
Yeah, because like a lot of times when you say I'm gonna pour it into the black community, they're talking about the
disenfranchised.
Yeah, the disenfranchised, the poverty stricken,
Help the poor
the
kids.
single mom, you know what I'm saying? So whenever I hear the more I hear that, the older I get, it kind of turns my stomach because I know that has nothing to do with black males above the age of 18.
So, one way that I can tell you personally that I know of an investor who doesn't obviously want to be mentioned is doing that is by trying to create quote unquote more affordable housing. If we're talking about being able to put something into the community, it has to be of tangible benefit, right? Like you said, if it's not something that's going to serve a male or female over the age of 18, how can we actually see that as a tangible benefit to our community per se, right? So he and I had a conversation, and I was like, I know personally he's helped 3 or 4 people within the last 6 months that are of age and families, whether it's through helping to get the house down to a reasonable cost through their purchase or pushing home ownership and being the conduit of the vessel to help them get to that. But he's doing it by his actions, not by just his words or speaking about it. Because the term affordability is obviously that of an individual basis. Because what's affordable to somebody who makes $40,000 is not affordable to someone who makes $100,000. They're completely different. And that's the conversation that he and I had. I said, too many times we hear about people pumping resources into this black community, like you said, that it's more about words, or it's only towards the younger population or to the kids, not necessarily for getting the adults, which I think would help retain some of the black population that comes here. I figure I'm more like the anomaly that came here back in 06 and I'm still here.
And you're a Hokie.
And I'm a Hokie.
You came in from Blacksburg.
Enemy territory is still here, but I've done well for myself. And so it's like Charlottesville was a place that I've used as a hub to create opportunities for myself, but also try to put others on, but then say, okay, it's easy for me to leave and go to a major metropolitan area. I could go back down to Raleigh. Raleigh is booming. That's where our headquarter office is. And they've been wanting me to come back. I could easily just shut everything down, continue to have my real estate properties here and just manage them from a distance and go back to Raleigh. But I said, you know what? If I was to sell everything here, then I would fall into the numbers and lower what's already existing or what's a problem, which is there's a small black population in Charlottesville and Albemarle County in the first place. And it's exactly what you say. Even the ones that go to UVA or graduate from Darden or to the business school, whatever, and then they leave when they get finished instead of going to do the 5 years on Wall Street, coming back, having the private equity firm as you said. Because what are they coming back to here? Because there's a very limited community of us that looks like us here in the Charlottesville area. Yeah. It's one of the challenges that I can honestly say myself.
Cycle. It's the vicious cycle.
If we're going to socialize, and we talk about this, right? There is a limited population. So I had to open up my horizons because doing things that I wasn't necessarily accustomed to doing in Danville or other places that I've lived in, you know, wineries are not popular in Danville, Virginia, but they are surely prevalent here in the Central Virginia area.
Central Virginia area.
Yeah. Number 2 on the East Coast for wine tours.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that because obviously I have told you all I love blue waters, I love to travel, I love scenery. So the scenery is nice here. You know, there's some incredible mountains, incredible views. So you can appreciate that thing. But from a black perspective, when we're talking about black socialization and us having things that may be more urban based that we're used to in larger metropolitan areas, I think there is a disconnect there in the Charlottesville area that causes people that are from metropolitan areas to say, I want to go back what I'm used to. I don't want to go down there and get accustomed to just necessarily doing some of the things that are just prevalent to the Charlottesville area. I want to go back to what I'm used to, seeing more of the faces that I'm used to seeing and dealing with on a daily basis. And I think that's why people will leave when they come from
Yeah, if you're black, beautiful, and successful, you don't want to come back to a little hokey white town. You can just blow it up in the big city.
Not just that, too. You got to also realize that, you know, we aren't monolithical people. So a lot of times when we raise up from having less to learning, as your brother read the encyclopedia, the vocabulary and the people that you're dealing with, as Price alluded to the last time, changes. Because the conversation and the way that I view what we're talking, we could be talking about this right here. And the way all three of us would talk about it, at a certain point, y'all two can start talking about this, about the compounds that's in it, this, that, and I'm like, man, it's a piece of drawers cut off with a string on it. You know what I'm saying? And that's it. We talking about the same thing. So when you talk about coming back to Charlottesville and looking at it for where you came off Wall Street, and then you're coming back to this, the black community that you're coming back to can't really relate to where you are at this point. So why should we, and black people, please understand this. If I get to a certain level, I'm not less black just because I don't want to do the things I was doing 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a problem with that. We judge each other under those type of restraints all the time. The type of vehicle that you drive, like you'll see a lot of buy here, pay here places that'll put you in a BMW, but it's a 06, it's a 09. That's not the same thing as a 2021, 2022. They're going to charge you the same, so now I'm driving something, and when it breaks down, I can't fix it. So when I pull up next to Corbin in my Cadillac, you know what I'm saying, and he's sitting in his, they ain't the same thing. He going to get oil changes. I'm underneath mine changing mine, you know what I'm saying? It ain't the same thing. So we need to also understand that there is a difference in the way that black people operate after we've gotten to a certain point. That doesn't mean that you turn your back on nobody. It's just, I can relate. I've seen more things. You start talking about the people in Danville about crystal clear water where you could, the stingrays swimming over top of your feet, they're going to look at you, man, you better get down there and let them catfish swim across your feet.
Catfish, more like carpet.
Yeah.
So,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? So then, since that's the other hard part of the black truth that you might not be able to understand, or not you, but
the term is sellout. They
right.
call it selling out when
right.
have achieved financial success.
What do white people think when they hear a black person be labeled as a sellout? Or is there even a thought at all? That's good. I'm glad you said that.
Or a better question would be, have you ever heard that term within the white demographic? Have you ever heard somebody call somebody?
He's a race man. He's a race man.
I'm a race man. Well, I grew up in D.C. in the 80s, so like I'm familiar with the term sellout, of course. But like, I'm saying as an adult operating in the world, if I hear somebody say, you know, dude is a sellout, do I make any meaning out of that? Not really. No, because, you know, at some level,
that hits our soul.
Yeah, but the basic answer is probably the same thing, which is that many of the people you would deal with in your professional environment would be called sellouts.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you're like, I like these people. I work with these people. These are my I mean, I'm saying I'm not seeing them as a sellout, and I'm not carrying that weight or code where I have to transact that way with this person. So
Ben
for
Carson.
me, as
Ben Carson, let's say, for instance, when we start looking at it, you say, okay, he's a doctor, he's a prominent figure, he's done all these things, right? A person from your community.
I thought you would like Ben Carson. He says the same type of crazy stuff about health that you do.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't did it. No, he didn't did it.
See, that's what I said. That's that black truth, white truth right there. He just drew it. So when you look at it, I've had white people and a lot of military retirees, especially Marines and stuff of that nature, say, okay, this man has done X, Y, Z. How can you look at him? He's the best of us, right? And you listening. Clarence Thomas. He's the judge. He's all these type things, right? But from the black perspective, we can see what you did to get to that point, who you've turned your back on. And that doesn't mean as much in the white community as it does in the black community.
No, it doesn't.
Because in I'm in a bad situation. Brother, help me. I ain't your brother. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how they carry that thing.
And that was something I was thinking about earlier in the show when you talk about what does class mean in the white community? I mean,
I'm black. I don't know.
So I know. It just means wealth.
Yeah,
it means absolutely nothing else. It means wealth. And it means wealth actually exactly in
what is wealth? Because like black people got a thing.
It means
good
all
money.
the money you got on paper.
Yeah. What is that? That's what I'm saying. Because like black people say, he got a job, he making good money. That's what grandparents used to say about us when we was like 18. He making good money. Where does good money start?
But the
job, white people?
The job isn't the indication of necessarily wealth. Wealth is what you have on the paper. What can you tangibly count for when we sit down and we see what your net worth is? That is the representation of
that wasn't taught.
But I'm saying to you in response to what he was just saying. In regards to how do we classify net worth? On paper, what is your bottom line total asset figure that's out there after all liabilities and expenses and everything has been accounted for? What is the asset total that you have at that bottom line figure? And that's how it's determined what your net wealth is.
And places like the South and in Charlottesville and most places, you know, there's still this illusion that class and wealth are not the same thing. Class is about how you conduct yourself and what you belong to, this, that, and the other thing. But I think people have already that's corny now. Even, if you look at upper Northwest DC, which is where I'm from, man, it ain't about that anymore. No, it really ain't. It is just like Jeff Bezos went to Princeton. So he's obviously from a good class of some kind. He is in a class by himself now. And that's how DC works, right? It's like literally people know what you're worth on paper, and that's your class. And I went to a school where everybody was in the stratospheric piece of that, except those of us whose parents were professionals, we still benefited from some level of intergenerational wealth, but it was like what I was talking about, 60, 100 grand for a down payment on a house, which is meaningful, right? But around what you're around, it's not meaningful. It's literally meaningless, right? Because you're talking about half the people there are actually going to have 20 grand a month in income when they are 40. Just because. And then that group of people starts their own businesses and they become self-made millionaires. Right? So we know this to be true in the white world. Like, we don't say it,
of course,
right? It's not on the ad, and it's not on the movie you play about how you get to Charlottesville. But there's nobody in the white world who is mistaken about that.
That's crazy.
That's true? Yeah. You around?
It's two different worlds, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that I get to see the statements, the retirement accounts, the assets, they know that I see it. I'm talking about they being all of my clients. So one thing I tell people is, if you come to me to do a financial transaction and you have to reveal to me asset statements, bank accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever the case is, you have to be transparent because I'm going to see it at the end of the day. You can't lie about credit. You can't lie about your assets. You can't do any of this stuff because I'm going to see it on paper. Like, it's going to come out.
Tell me the truth, please. And I won't tell your secrets.
Yeah, like, it's all confidential.
Yeah.
And when I look throughout my 15 years being in the financial services industry, and I look, and it's just amazing to me. You know how many times I've heard your story about the down payment gift? Or they left me a house, or they left me all of the possessions, whatever the case is, because I'm the sole heir, or there was a trust set up for me. And I start talking to people within my community of trust, and they're just like, trust what? Trust like it's an action word. Like, no, I'm talking about the noun thing called a foreign language. Trust. Like, this is how we actually keep ourselves out of probate and stop going through court battles and having to have fights with other heirs. And I'm going through it right now. On one property I'm trying to acquire right now, I have been helping the family go through a legal battle for 3 years because the property was left in the deceased great-grandfather's name since 1967. It has never been passed over since then. They've always paid the taxes. They kept up on the insurance, but they never crossed it over. He didn't leave a will. He didn't have trust. He had no documentation to spell out. And he has officially 28 grandchildren. So, do you know how much it's called quiet title is the process they had to go through to get this all done? But there has been people from as far as California that came out the woodworks to say, oh, you all don't know this, but I was his adopted daughter, or I am the cousin of the son on this side of the I mean, it's been just a complete nightmare. But this is how not taking advantage of the financial services and the products that we talk about to help us alleviate some of the headaches that we're going to have down the line with passionate or generational wealth, or getting to the point we even have wealth, as you were asking about what is the definition of wealth. This will take you further from it when you don't take advantage of the system, because I'm dealing with it right now. I've been dealing with 3 years. Hopefully we have it resolved by first quarter of 2022, but I've been helping them go along with this.
I mean, a lot of times the down payment is a fully paid up life insurance policy, right? It's just $250,000 policy pays out, gets split 3 ways, and bang, everybody's got a down payment on the house.
See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? That's how you use it, right? You see how effortlessly he said that, though? Because it's natural. The same way you and I may have a conversation, man, I ain't going over to the court because I'm going to refer him over there, man. What did brother know he talking about? Man, I don't know him from nothing. But like you said, you have to be the conduit of the vessel to be able to get someone from there that you've known that does trust you to say, no, I'm telling you, go talk to court. He's real. He's going to keep it. He's going to keep it all the way 100 with you, and give him that, because that conversation, we're talking about white, black, that is normal. Like, I have a lady right now who's a real estate agent in town. Her mom is leaving her 10 properties when she passes away. 10. They're all paid off. They're all paid. I said, even if she didn't earn another dollar, she would be probably worth $5 million easy cold with the properties that she has. She has some multi-units. She has some single families. She has a cabin property. But, you know, and I'm not knocking her, but I'm saying we as a community could do this, but it would take a cycle for us to start having these conversations to say, this is the way, the blueprint in order to start doing this so we can change this over time. We can't knock down the financial services industry because we can't tackle that problem. But we can tackle within our own population.
How difficult is it? How difficult is it for the black community to collectively get together and say everybody put in $100 a month for 2 years, and then we go give it to you to purchase some stuff?
You see my face? You see my face?
His face is not good, people.
I'm trying to give the people something.
No, I'm gonna give you something real quick before we wrap up. So let me tell you something real quick. Let me tell you something. Can you name 10 people in the black community right now that you would feel comfortable for 2 years putting up $100 a pop with? I want you. Can you name them? You want to put them out there?
Yes.
Can you name 10?
Corbin Graves,
no,
Charles Lewis, Aaron. I can
hold
now, but not before the show.
Prior to you meeting me, prior to you meeting Charles Lewis, could you name 10 people you would feel comfortable with putting up? I said $100. I didn't say 1,000. I didn't say $10,000 a month. I said $100 a month, right?
And they have it.
Which, in the grand scheme of things, is not a large amount of money, right? Then what I am saying to you is this: that's where the problem comes into play, because we should be able to effectively name 5 people we could put up $100 a piece and say, hey, at the end of this 2-year period, we're going to have X number of dollars and we're going to acquire this. Because, see, here's the thing. Like you said with the life insurance policy, he just stated that buy the policy in full, a paid in full life insurance policy, bust it down the middle 3 ways, and then each recipient is going to get a significant down payment for their house. It's the same principle, right? You are using a unified front, and the mentality is saying, I want others to be better as a result. This is my legacy play to you. So I'm looking out for others. But the problem with it is, a lot of times within our community, is the crab in the barrel mentality. So if you have a good idea, and I talked about this on the show the other day, instead of you saying, cool, I'm going to bring you on, I'm going to put you on. Razor may be like, I don't know, Cole. You know, you may come in here and take a little bit of my shine. No, I want to give you whatever information I can give you to put you in a better position for you and your family, because I truly do value the relationship and the rapport that we have built. And I'm saying thank you. And my way to say thank you back to you is not by just saying thank you. It's by saying, let me give you some information. Let me give you some knowledge that will help your family get ahead. Because if you do nothing else, I want you to at least be able to say, I took your advice on this particular thing and I used it. Because for us to get to the point where we can honestly start putting that money up, money changes people. You know that. It changes
Get you killed.
It changes people.
Get you killed.
It's a good way to end the show. Money changes people. People.
Get you killed.
Hopefully the Charlottesville Inclusive Media Project was also changing people. Hopefully conversations like this one,
in my humble opinion,
will change people. Corbin, Hargraves, thank you so much for bringing it. You know, for all of your wisdom and knowledge.
brother.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show.
Yeah.
Hey.